So as I said at the opening of this service, in so many words, this is a pretty terrifying and momentous time, isn't it? Yesterday's news of the last gasps of Trumpism, we hope, and of the highest infection rates ever in the UK can't fail to leave many of us reeling. It truly is, or at least feels like, the worst of times. Or is it? I imagine it would have felt pretty bad to be a Jew at the time of Jesus. The mighty empire of Rome had its iron boot on the neck of Judea. They conquered through violence, and they maintained control through the same violence. It was a time when a king could order the murder of all children in the town of Bethlehem. It was a time when a man who spoke only of peace could be nailed up outside the city walls by the policeman of the day. It's no wonder that many who lived at that time thought that the end of the world must be upon them. I'm sure you picked up the reference in the first letter of John to the concept of Antichrist. So how did Jesus respond to such a time, a worst of times? Did he incite his followers to storm the government buildings? No. Jesus stood up to read in the synagogue of his hometown of Nazareth. And here are the words that he quoted and then made his own. "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord." Having read those words, according to Luke's account, Jesus put down the scroll and said to the congregation, "Today these words have been fulfilled in your midst." Jesus deliberately and purposefully, in the worst of times, declared his mission to be one of bringing good news to the poor, of binding up, of proclaiming liberty and release. He proclaimed that this was the year of the Lord's favour, or, as in the translation we used this morning, an acceptable year of the Lord. But as I said in a sermon of a few weeks ago, and it's worth saying again, my eye has been drawn to what Jesus didn't say. I find it's fascinating that when he opened that scroll from Isaiah and read from chapter 61, Jesus stopped at that point of proclaiming the year of the Lord's favour, or the year that is acceptable to the Lord. He stopped there. He didn't read the next line, which says, "and the day of vengeance of the Lord." Jesus' focus, you see, is always on doing the greatest good. He teaches us to forgive and to turn the other cheek. When violence breaks out around him, he retreats from it, melts away into the crowd. When violence is meted out to him directly, he takes it, absorbs it, he allows it to break over him, and then he transforms it through resurrection. He doesn't resist it. The God whom Jesus unfolds for us is not the angry, vengeful God of former understandings. No, this is the God of love, of healing, of binding up, and of setting free. This is the God, the parent, the loving Father, who teaches us the ways of love. Ultimately, it's this God of love who is revealed to us first at the Epiphany. Jesus' entry into the human world transforms, it radically reshapes our picture of who God is and what God is like. Jesus reveals to us the God who pours out his life for us and who offers us his life in return, abundant life, filled with wisdom, with healing, with sharing, and with liberty. It is life that goes on forever. Now, there is for me no greater symbol of the outpouring of God's life for the world than the symbol of the Eucharist. It summarizes, it encapsulates, it demonstrates the reality of what a life lived for others looks like, a sacrificial life, a life lived and given freely in the service of others. Which is why, for me, it is vitally important that we keep on celebrating and demonstrating the Eucharist, even when so many of you cannot participate in the conclusion of taking that life spiritually into your own through the physical tokens of bread and wine. For now, symbolism is all that we have, and it will have to suffice. Because even in the act of choosing not to gather together for worship, we are living out the call to love our neighbours by remaining at home to keep the virus in check. We are making a stand for love. But I will continue to celebrate the Eucharist each time I stand at this altar. And each time I read the words of institution, I am proclaiming the New Testament of love, poured out for you. Each time I reenact the Last Supper of the Lord, I'm also declaring that this is the year of the Lord's favour. Because every year, even a year in the worst of times, is a year of God's favour. God never stops pouring out his love, teaching us how to love, calling us to lives and acts of love. So let's continue to bathe in this powerful symbol of the Eucharist, even though we have to do so through the screen of our mobile phones or our computers. Let's join our efforts to the ongoing mission of the God of love to bring good news to the poor, to heal the brokenhearted, proclaiming liberty to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, and proclaiming the year of the Lord's favour. Amen. Amen.